Hello, everybody. Welcome to we're back to normal Bible studies. Look who's arrived last minute, Mr. Patriarch. Hello.
Hey, sorry. I just realized with the time change, I thought it was
yeah, sorry.
I thought
we
it
are
was
live
at 10
now.
o'clock.
I should warn you in case you weren't aware.
Okay.
We are live.
Look at that baby.
Great. Well, exciting start this week. For everyone just joining, we're doing Psalm 37 this week. Back to the normal style of Bible studies. You'll be, I think, pleased to hear. Although I've enjoyed the last few weeks doing some slightly different stuff. Tell you what, rather than me praying this week, does one of you want to kick us off with a prayer? How about Lee Templar? Why don't you go ahead? You up for that?
Yeah, sure thing. Father, thank you for gathering us this week, for getting through our challenges. Thank you for whatever struggles we had to deal with to more greatly lean on you and learn your wisdom. And as we go forward in whatever challenges we face, may we continue to return to you for what to do, rather than by our own will, but rather by yours. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So my guests this week, well, the two who've actually bothered to show up on time. Lee Templar, how are you doing?
Well, it is a pleasant weekend.
It's beautiful.
I'm doing my research into possibly starting a PhD. Have some interviews and whatnots.
And Settlers Lament, the world famous returning.
Yeah. It's thanks for the introduction. I do like to remind people I'm world famous, not like out of pride or anything. Just I think it's good that people get an accurate picture of how important it is that I'm wasting an hour of my life on stuff like this.
And the main thing I want to get out of this Bible study is people contributing to your Patreon. That was really why I set it up in the first place.
Yeah, I mean that is the main goal. So remember, subscribestar.com/settlerslament.
Oh, Subscribestar. Sorry, there we go.
Patreon works also. But no, I mean recently, I don't know. I don't get everyone that knows me knows that I do not get into personal stuff. But I guess I don't know, religious wise, I've been reading a lot of church father stuff. Right before this started, I was reading Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho. Trypho was a Jewish figure. I mean, he's I don't know. It's probably a dialogue. It's a literary genre. It's not necessarily a real person that he's talking to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like if you're familiar with like the dialogues that people like Plato did, it's that type of style of thing.
Huh.
So it's quite interesting, especially it goes into quite a bit of detail on the divinity of Christ, and this is from about the mid 2nd century. So it's an important document. A lot of stuff from Justin Martyrs, but this document included is important when dealing with anti-Trinitarian groups.
Well, we've had some since you've been away. We've had a few Trinitarian, anti-Trinitarian toing and froing. So you may get some. You may get some stuff thrown at you from the chat. Miss Patriarch, and a brand new guest is with you.
Yes, we have a special guest this week. Sorry about this, guys. I was looking at normally earlier with the clock stuff. It was 2 hours difference, and then I was like, yeah, let me check in an hour early ahead of time. And I'm like, oh crap, it's going on right now. The time zone changed with daylight saving, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was trying to do it with my phone, and apparently I hopped in early, so I was like, "Ooh, crap!" So I relocated to my office. But yeah, we are joined by my son, Nicholas.
Hey. Hi, Nicholas.
Call him Nicholas. So he's hey, you want to wave to the people, Nicky Boo? Say hi.
We haven't earned a wave yet from Nicholas.
No, not yet. Oh, there he goes.
Hey, hello.
All right. Anyways, carry on.
There you go, Settler. Straight away, LaRue is going for the jugular, as predicted.
I mean that guy's a oneness Pentecostal, I believe.
I don't know. Perhaps so.
But yeah. I mean, I agree that that, say, Ignatius or Justin talking about the divinity of Christ is not necessarily the most important thing when dealing with oneness Pentecostals, because different anti-Trinitarian groups required different proofs. But also, one other very important thing is I would like to announce that I am formally challenging Vosh to do a Bible study with me and Lambuda.
Yes.
And I know he's afraid to do it, but I'm throwing down the gauntlet.
Yeah, he's famously bashful and doesn't like to debate, but I think it's time that he really opened himself up to these formats. Great. Well, enough chit chat, because this week we've got a hard out in 50 minutes, and we've got a fantastic psalm to look at this week. This might be the first psalm we've done. If so, that's tragic. Let me retweet your tweet there, Settler. And I think with this psalm, all of the meat of the discussion that I have in my head, at least, is at the start. So we might be front loading the content here, or maybe not, if you guys disagree. Either way, should we read some verses of David? Fret not yourselves because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, let's pause there. This verse, these two little bits here, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Very, very famous verse from the Bible. I think, for example, Oprah said it was her favorite verse. Lots of people have posters of this up in the wall. I'm not entirely sure. People are always interpreting it the correct way. So let me throw open the first few verses of this chapter for thoughts. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, clearly the verse is saying that as long as you say that you like God, you can do whatever you want, and God will do what God will do for you whatever you ask.
Yeah, it's basically the Old Testament version of "Don't judge, bro."
Yeah. So I think so. Yeah. Let's quickly see if there's any comments on the bit before that key verse. Because I wouldn't want to just skip on to the exciting bit. But it says, don't be caught up worrying about people who are doing wrong, which I think is a genuine challenge to us. I think me and people in our kind of community do spend a lot of time bemoaning the way that other people are living, and the fact that it's sometimes our lives are affected by it. But the encouragement here is actually, from God's perspective, you take a step back, actually their time is pretty short. We need to trust in God, who's got that longer perspective, and we should befriend faithfulness rather than short-term gains. You all happy with that summary of the initial bit? I'll take silence as a yes. So
yes.
Delight yourself. So I think both halves of this verse are worthy of discussion. There's what does it mean to delight yourself in the Lord? And then there is, what is this kind of consequent? How does it work? What's the promise here? So does anybody have any thoughts, first of all, on what does it mean to like delight yourself in the Lord?
It probably has something to do with whatever bad, whatever bad or good happens, you're at peace with God. Delighting yourself with the Lord can't be limited to just just good things happen in your life. It also has to be bad things, because it gives no connotation of it being good or bad. It says delight yourself in the Lord. So it's like a universal covering statement. And yeah, sure, if you can delight yourself in the Lord when your family dies or disaster strikes, maybe he will give you the desires of your heart. not just the good things.
So, okay, I feel like you may be making a connection then to the second half of the verse here that I want to discuss. So I have previously made the bold statement here that the connection between these two halves is, if you delight in the Lord, the desires of your heart by definition are the Lord. So you will get the Lord. There's almost like a little trick there. Now, I rethought about this as I was preparing for this week, and I'm not sure I agree with my past self being quite so dogmatic, at least. So it says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. I previously thought what it meant was, well, if previously you desired chocolate cake, but now you desire the Lord, well, you can get the Lord. So the desires of your hearts can be accomplished just purely by no longer desiring chocolate cake. But I now think it's probably a bit of that, but also I do think there's a promise here genuinely that he will give you good things during this life materially. But I think that is only true in the sort of Proverbs sense, where it's not a universal, it's a pattern. So delight yourself in the Lord and your desires are realigned. And then also, because your desires are now for good things, God's happy to give them to you. So it's like Jesus says, which good father won't give good gifts to his son? Who, if you ask for a fish, is he going to give you a, whatever it was, snake or something? So I want to do a quick poll. Do people agree with what do people? How would you sort of reword or reinterpret this verse?
No, I think you're generally correct. But the things that God will give you, I think you're right. So it's not necessarily like a prosperity gospel interpretation, but God will provide for you, but in a way that is spiritually fulfilling and stuff, I guess. Sort of like giving you cute little babies to look after. Things like that, maybe. You might not be a millionaire, but I do think whatever entails a fulfilled life, you can count on the Lord to provide, I guess.
Some people quote this verse, especially in a sort of prosperity gospel approach, saying, well, become a Christian and you'll have, private jet and a mansion and a bunch of Lamborghinis. I think we can all rule that interpretation out, right? That's not what it means.
Yeah. Name it and claim it, yes.
Claim it, yeah. The Oprah translation of this is, oh, well, it's the same thing as the golden rule, and it's the same thing as this Buddhist idea, and basically you should just be a nice person and good things will, generally come your way. What do we think of that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, clearly, what the Bible is just trying to say is that you should adopt the values that progressives in 2021 believe in. Because that's just, the self-evidently obvious thing to do, to be a good person. And that's all the Bible says to do, is be a good person.
It's amazing that Jesus' teaching finally found fulfillment exactly in 2021, isn't it? With progressive morality.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great.
Remarkable. Are you asking where's Lambda? I mean, it's me. I know I'm at a different angle, but it's still me. I just had to improvise my setup this week a little bit. So apologies if this is a bit sort of fourth wall breaking. And I've got a bit of a strobing effect going on, but the best I could do at short notice. Are there any other thoughts on this verse?
I think it's maybe important to notice that heart there is not akin to the English understanding of our traditions of heart. There's a different dichotomy in the Levant culture. Heart is kind of just a filler word that we use with a lot of these verses, but there's actually like several words. There's one word, this isn't what's used here, but one word literally translates to kidneys, and this implies the the fleshy desires of it's usually associated with like, your belly, the belly is where all the fleshy desires are located, food and just below it lust and stuff like that. Whereas this word is it's actually kind of literally translates to inner man. And so it's the things deeper than the flesh. I think it's pronounced leb or something like that. And so it means more akin to like the non-fleshy, deeper desires. So, sorry, Oprah, but it would have inherently nothing to do with your worldly desires. The desires of the heart being, like, love and kindness, basically. Like if this were to be one of the, Captain Planet rings, it's the heart ring, unfortunately. it's the one that doesn't get you any riches or anything. This is like the more wholesome stuff. So like if the desire of your heart is like, children and friendship and love, that like agape, not agape love, not eros love, then yeah, the Lord will favor you, because if you're delighting in the Lord's friendship, he will give you friendship. That's really the better way to understand it.
I've just realized that Johnny the Great was probably saying, "Where's his Lamborghini?" Not asking, "Where's Lambda?"
Lambo, where Lambo?
Sorry. Are the natural desires of man evil?
Yeah, that's what Genesis says. Man's heart is linked to evil.
I wonder if Luru will agree with you there.
Actually, he might.
Right. Would delight yourself in the Lord mean to pray or meditate? Perhaps your desires will be revealed through this activity. Yeah, this is kind of a question I was wanting to get into. So I'm glad you asked that. Because when I said, what does it mean to delight yourself in the Lord? It'd be nice to briefly think about what practically that might mean. What does it look like to live delighting in the Lord day to day? I think it will impact your life. It's not just a sort of it's not saying just flash a thought in your mind once in your life that God is good. I think it's an ongoing, constant thing that you live in an attitude of gratefulness to God. You're not grumbling all the time about your life. You're thinking about the good things you've got because of God, and meditating on His Word. Lots of practical things. Yeah, similar to what Martin's saying. And the word Lord there is specifically, and I can tell this because it's all the caps, it's Yahweh, isn't it? So it's being very specific. It's saying, delight yourself in the Lord, as revealed to Moses in the burning bush. Yeah,
and we Christians know that delighting yourself in the Lord translates in the New Testament to bearing your cross.
Ooh, good point.
So, if you bear your cross in the world as the Lord has determined, I'm sure He will be more sensitive to the desires of your heart in your struggle.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this kind of similar verse, and we kind of ding ding ding. That connection I also thought was good. You might remember last week we were talking about how there's often couplets in Hebrew. So I think this is a similar case of that. Delight yourself in the Lord, He'll give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. I think that's another evidence that what we're seeing by delight yourself in the Lord is the same idea as commit your way to the Lord. Like if you're delighting in the Lord, it follows automatically that you're going to commit your ways to Him and trust in Him. And then the response of that, so the response to delighting in the Lord was He gives you the desire of your heart. The response to committing your way to the Lord and trusting in Him is that He will act, He'll bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. So again, it looks like the desires of your heart will be connected in some way to the bringing forth of righteousness. And that's maybe a clue that as we grow in godliness, the things that we desire is an increase in our own righteousness and justice. Often we don't think about justice as being, I don't think it's as immediate in our mind to think of justice as a godly thing or as a good thing, at least in our culture. But it is a natural and good thing to burn with anger at true injustice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's carry on. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Yeah, I thought this was interesting because that is one of the responses you have when you read through the first few verses. Is like, do I really have to wait, for years or even the rest of my life before seeing justice, before God rewards me? Potentially our reward isn't even in this life. But here we're encouraged to be patient. I actually think sin in a lot of ways just is equivalent to being impatient, like short-term thinking and going after short-term pleasures is quite likely to be at the root of all sin, I think. Given that clearly in the long run, if you want eternal happiness, then you should live righteously. So kind of follows to me very obviously.
Yeah, sin is a high time preference spirituality.
Oh, no, there's a quote. I love it. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, it's another exhortation. I think it's quite difficult to not spend all your time fretting over people who seem to be doing materially well and are acting in evil ways. And I'm sure for all of us, there are certain individuals and certain groups who spring to mind thinking about that. But we need to watch how much of our lives we spend worrying about that. Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not to yourself, it tends only to evil. For the evildoer shall be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord shall inherit the land. I think this is the whole way through this psalm, I feel this pull you often get with the Psalms, where it's like there's an immediate material interpretation that says, if you live godly ways, ultimately it's likely to work out for your good, and also God will be pleased with you, and also your attitude will be better, so you'll enjoy your life more. But then on the other hand, you've got the eternal perspective where you say, actually, in the new heavens and the new earth, when there's the new Jerusalem, the people of God will inherit the whole earth at that point. So there's the kind of twin levels that this psalm is working on. Any thoughts about these few verses? I know there's a lot of repetition going on in the ideas in this psalm. Martin says, never compare yourself to other people. It's hard to do though, isn't it? It's supernatural. No, not supernatural. It's incredibly natural response to think that your life is being lived well if you think you're doing better than those people immediately around you, and to think you're living wrong if the people around you are doing better than you are. I think it's wise to surround yourself with people, if you can, who are doing better than you, especially better spiritually. Mm-hmm. You know, we should try to seek out company that will make ourselves improve. You know, don't walk in the way of sinners is the way other psalms talk about it. But yeah, we are, as humans, very influenceable creatures, aren't we?
Yeah, it's kind of annoying actually, because like it's easy to get tricked into yourself thinking, oh, I know my Bible, I'll be fine around non-believers. But if you're not balancing how much time you spend around them with actual believers, you're going to find that the influence is going to start hitting you.
Yeah, I think that's particularly true if you think about the case of marriage. There's the idea of don't be unequally yoked is the phrase, right? If you're married to somebody who isn't a Christian, then it's very natural that they're going to be constantly pulling you in the direction that you don't want to ultimately be going. That's not to say don't associate with non-Christians. Of course, that's a ridiculous. I feel the need to say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, as Paul says, you'd have to retire from the world to not associate with non-Christians.
Which is a choice that I'd say some religious groups have taken some Christian groups have taken in the past, and I'd be quite critical of. I'm skeptical of the idea of living out of the world entirely, devoting yourself to prayer and such. But I can imagine other people would have different views on that than me. I tend to think, although it is true that it's a challenge to live in the world and to remain holy, it is the right thing to do. We're called to be disciple makers and to share the good news, not to simply exist for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I kind of also am thinking of like there's a broader lesson here of like just like don't put yourself into positions of temptation, basically. That goes for like, non-believing friends. You can't retire from the world, but you can like at least balance. If you're spending a lot of time around non-believers, it's just healthy to balance it with being with believers. Kind of like refreshing there. And that goes also with like I think parental relationships. If the parent is, parents have a special influence over the child. So if the parent's a non-believer, you're gonna have to spend less time around them. If the parent is a believer, you have to spend more time around them. Yeah.
It carries on. In just a little while, the wicked will be no more. Though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there. Which I feel like is quite encouraging. It's not the way we often like to admit that we think, but yeah, it's quite nice to think that those people whose schemes are against God aren't going to last forever. That I think from this verse we can see that it's right to have some satisfaction when evil people's plans fall apart. We can have a little bit of a laugh at their expense. Kind of
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, this verse is a defense of Christian Schadenfreude. There's a name for a book if ever I've heard one. Probably got that published. Oh, interesting. Wicked may also mean bewitched, according to Emmett Fox. Emmett Fox was the chap whose translation we looked at last week. So I'm inclined to take the idea quite seriously. So in that case, this verse would say, the bewitched will be no more. Interesting. Bewitched, I guess I'm inclined to take the word bewitched metaphorically, but maybe I shouldn't, given that witches are actually mentioned seriously in the Old Testament as a thing, doing magic and such in an evil way. But yes, one way or another, if you're bewitched, you don't have control over your mind, I guess. Stack the odds is a technique I use personally. I find non-believers who are seekers and invite themselves into the world of believers, church, men's group, etc. Yeah, I wonder if this is connected to the idea of like shake the dust off your feet as you leave the village that wasn't interested in hearing. That's what the disciples were told to do by Jesus. Like, yes, we are told to go out and preach, and you want to have a lot of perseverance with people who are close family friends and such, but ultimately there's enough people out there who want to hear the gospel. You're just wasting your time if you keep plugging away at groups who don't want to hear. And sad as it is, they've had their chance.
Yeah, it's important to like balance. you can't constantly preach, but you can at least say it, and then if they reject it, you've done your part.
Now here's another famous verse. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundance and abundant peace. What do we think about this idea? The meek inheriting the earth.
Well, I mean, clearly what it means is people that hold liberal viewpoints will inherit the earth. And like the racist, Trump supporting, conservatives or whatever will be washed away.
You know, I'm glad we've got you here for your interjections, sadly. I've sometimes thought it would be great to start a YouTube channel where you are nothing but sarcastic the entire time, but you do it so constantly that you build up a genuine support base from people who have the opposite set of points of view as you do. So that's a project I've had in the back of my mind for a while.
Just
It'd be quite
ridiculous amounts of irony. Irony yourself into the opposite side's camp.
Yeah, just to really hammer in. What's the rule about satire getting to a point where you can't determine it with reality?
Law, I think.
Yes, thank you.
I'm reminded of Psalm 24:21 actually.
Oh, yeah.
Which goes I think the King James Version is right in this one. My son, fear the Lord and the King, and meddle not with them that are given to change. So anyone advocating change in the scriptures is just don't meddle with them. They're on the way to destruction.
To be meek is to be humble. In meditation, your ego mind needs to be humble itself in order that the subconscious can come to the fore. I think, the definition of meek that I've heard, and I can't verify this, but it seems I've heard it a few times from different people who I feel I trust, is the idea of a sword in its sheath. Or in other words, you have the capacity for action, but you know when to hold that in. So you're ready to go. You could be dangerous, but you're also under control. Like power, wielded along with self-control.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I was holding myself back though because I wanted to make sure. I was like, God, I really hope I'm thinking about the right passage.
Yeah,
but yeah. Basically, what it was is meek in this sarcastic Lambuda channel, Jane Lynn, Lambuda. But the idea, yes, is what you're saying is basically he who can wield the sword but chooses not to. So basically. The idea is you want to be a benevolent Chad, essentially, is the idea. So you want to be able to you want to be the bad guy around town or whatever. Proverbially speaking, you want to be making things happen. You want to be successful. You want to maybe even have like martial training stuff, but not exercising it to get over on others, I think is sort of the idea. So basically, the meek shall inherit the earth. Think about that as like the tens shall inherit the earth, right? So that I think that's
the jargon.
Yeah, I think that's basically sort of what it means.
Is the opposite of meek? I feel like the opposite would be proud. No, that's probably as humble, isn't it? Not sure. Anyway,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like if you're meek, you are choosing your moment to reveal your power levels almost. Like you've got this great ability, you've got all of these resources, but you're not flaunting them and using them for every opportunity. You're just
That's a great idea because, you wait for the power level reveal and it's God at the end.
Yeah, that's true. Ultimately, in our corner is the creator of the universe. So it's a pretty strong position to be in.
Yeah. One thing I was watching, this is tangentially related, but Northern Man, a frequent guest of this channel, he had his most recent video on, which I would encourage everyone to check out, on Confucianism, was talking about this concept of the superior man, and how the superior man is somebody who is basically who's mastered themselves, who is sort of striving for excellence and whatnot, but basically isn't putting on airs about it, right? And this sort of ties it in, and it's sort of interesting to see how like people who are searching for at least aspects of the truth tend to find it no matter where they are, because you see a very similar thing too in the New Testament where blessed is he who, prays to the Lord, not in sort of in front of everybody where he can see, but in sort of the quiet, sort of in his own home. And the idea is that you are sort of achieving mastery and sort of excellence in a certain sense, but not in a way that sort of is openly recognized by the world. So your goals are more getting a truer, closer connection with the Lord, and not sort of the things that the things around that, so to speak. And that's, I don't know. I think that's sort of what it means by meekness. It doesn't mean being neat, just sort of playing video games and not bothering anybody. I think, we're obviously called to be more than that, but but at the same time, not trying to dominate, I guess, with your mastery.
We're called to be meek, but we're not called to be mild.
Yes.
The wicked plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend their bows to bring down the poor and the needy, to slay those whose way is upright. Their sword shall enter their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. Better the little that the righteous has than the abundance of many wicked. I think there's loads of interesting ideas in this little section. You really could take this psalm and do a verse a day and just really meditate on it. I love here, it's like the wicked plot and gnash their teeth. You can imagine these like horrible people. And the response from the Lord here, I guess this is Elohim, but the Lord, he just laughs. it's like cute to him. Oh yeah, you're plotting, you little ants. You've got a couple of hours on this earth, and then your plotting will all be in vain. I also love that this metaphor of you pull out a sword, and then it enters your own heart. It actually reminds me of you remember in Empire Strikes Back, there's that scene where Luke is going into the cave of testing, and Yoda says to him, there's dark side in that cave. Luke says, what should I take with me? No, I can't remember how it goes. But basically, he's going to pick up his sword and his gun and stuff. And Yoda says, your weapons, you will not need them. What Luke says, what's in there? Yoda says, only what you bring with you. Like, if you go about your life looking for warfare, that's quite likely going to be how your own end is met. Any other thoughts on these couple of verses, or should we carry on?
No, keep going. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, let's keep the flow going. So, so better is the little of the righteous than the abundance of many wicked. By the way, I was going to say, this is really true. If you imagine being somebody who has like great opulence and wealth and loads of material possessions, but your heart is uneasy because you're not a settled person, you're not a righteous person, versus somebody who's actually going through hunger or anxiety or for something, or sleep deprivation, but fundamentally in your core, you're saved. At least my experience is it's so much better to have little but to feel right with God and be righteous. So I wanted to back up the psalm here. That's been my experience. Not that I always keep to it, but For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their heritage will remain forever. They are not put to shame in evil times. In the days of famine they have abundance, but the wicked will perish. The enemies of the Lord are like the glory of the pastures. They vanish like smoke, they vanish away. The wicked borrows, but does not put back. But the righteous is generous and gives. For those blessed by the Lord shall inherit the land, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. Oh, I wanted to mention a point brought up in chat by LaRue. I can't find it now, but he pointed out that it says the land, not the whole earth. I think that was a poke at my sort of apocalyptic interpretation of the psalm, which I admit is not as clear as the straightforward reading. So I can understand if people don't want to take it in that direction. It says, those blessed by the Lord shall inherit the land, and it's written to the nation of Israel. Its primary audience is this earth during this world, I think. And I think it's a valid lens to also interpret the Psalms in other contexts. And I think we see, for example, Jesus do that with Psalms. So I think it's a valid lens. But yes, the word land here does not mean the same as world. Does anybody have any other comments on these few verses we've gone through? We saw the wicked, again, the same theme. They're perishing. It's like a reassurance that even though people reading the psalm might be facing people who look like they're flourishing at the moment the psalm's being written, but especially it's really clear from now, isn't it? Like, looking back thousands of years to when this was written, who cares that the wicked briefly flourish? What benefits it? Whereas the people who were righteous, their reward is eternal. The wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. I think we've already read this. For those blessed by the Lord shall inherit the land, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. The steps of a man are established by the Lord when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. I have been young, and now I am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children have become a blessing. I thought this was quite interesting. There's this reference of I have been young and now I am old, quite similar to Proverbs, the kind of idea of listen, my son, to my teachings. I've earned this wisdom for years. And in his long years, he's not seen the righteous forsaken or his children begging for bread. Now, we see Jesus say on the cross, my Lord, why have you forsaken me? And of course, Jesus was righteous. But the reason that he was forsaken was because he had, this is at least my understanding of it, feel free to push back if you would word it differently, but he has the sins imputed onto him from the world. So he was in and of himself righteous, but yet he was forsaken. Now we see here the righteous are not forsaken as a pattern. It doesn't mean it never happens, but I think in the specific case of Jesus, he was choosing to go to the cross. And in that choice, there was a transfer. So the punishment that he suffered was not for his own unrighteousness, But his totally righteous sacrifice opened up the possibility for God to transfer the punishment onto him for the world. I imagine LaRue, who would phrase things slightly differently. Oh, Settler dropped out for a second. He's back.
Yo.
Yo, Settler. Thanks for rejoining. So the description of the righteous man, what do we think of these quick laundry list of righteous things? Lending generously, his children become a blessing, and then that they're told that they will live forever or dwell forever. It's just interesting language. I think this psalm is really fascinating. For the Lord loves justice. He will not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever, but the children of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever. So again and again in this psalm, there's this repetition, isn't there, of it's about inheritance, it's about land, it's about children. If you're righteous, your children are going to get the physical land and they'll have it forever. But yet, the nation of Israel did eventually get taken out of the land that they used to own. So what's going on there, right? The nation split in half. The first half got taken off into slavery, and then the second half did, and they lost the land. So is this psalm just lying to us?
I think it was sort of contingent upon their faithfulness to some degree. As the Bible says, the God can take the lampstand away from them or whatever, as it is. Chastisement is deserving upon different people at different times, depending on their iniquities. So, yeah, I don't think that's against some contradiction from God at all, personally.
Yeah, I think you're right that had in the hypothetical where the nation of Israel had continued to follow God, they would never have lost the land. Exactly. I'm not sure that was ever on the cards, given that the nation of Israel were comprised of sinful individuals. But maybe a more learned Bible scholar would disagree with me on that. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever. The mouths of the righteous utters wisdom, and his tongue speaks justice. The law of his God is in his heart. His steps do not slip. The wicked watches for the righteous and seeks to put him to death. The Lord will not abandon him to his power, or let him be condemned when he is brought to trial. Wait for the Lord and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. I have seen a wicked, ruthless man spreading himself like a green laurel tree. But he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Though I sought him, he could not be found. Mark the blameless, and behold the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace. But transgressors shall be altogether destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. The salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their stronghold in the time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them, because they take refuge in him. And that's the end of the psalm. So looking back over these last few, I read a bunch there, but I didn't want to stop the flow, because sometimes doing it in stops and starts means you kind of lose track of the argument. But should we go back? I don't know if anybody has a particular verse they want me to stop on. Otherwise, we'll work through it again. Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to say the righteous seeks to put him to death, but the Lord will not abandon him to his power or let him be condemned when he is brought to trial. However, well, is this true? Does this mean that no Christian has ever been wrongly condemned? And follow-up question, what about Jesus again? Like, how come Jesus was put to death, given that he was righteous and yet he was condemned? So thoughts?
Yeah, I think taking on the nature of sin is why he was condemned. Taking on like the world's sins meant that, like, you know, the rules of the world viewed him as deserving of it because he was holding our sin.
I think it's worth at least thinking about the fact that we're told here the wicked watches the righteous and seeks for him to be put to death. It's quite extreme. We, as at least aspiringly righteous people, feel there is some enmity sometimes from those around us, but we shouldn't be surprised. In fact, we should expect people to want to put us to death for being righteous. I find that kind of scary, but also it's comforting in the sense that I shouldn't be surprised, right? To have people opposing righteousness and increasingly wanting to force everyone to act in an unrighteous way. The way that wicked people think is righteousness puts them to shame and makes them so furious that they want to lash out and literally kill. But it's worth also taking it seriously, isn't it? People want to put righteous people to death. Let's carry on. So, yeah, you'll look on when they were good. I saw him spread like a green laurel tree. Behold, he was no more, and though I sought him, he could not be found. I find that quite a cute wording. I enjoy that kind of self-description from the psalmist saying, yeah, there was this wicked guy. I had a good look around. He was nowhere to be seen. I guess God killed him, or one way or another, he met his sorry end. What a shame. Yeah. I think it's really encouraging for those of us who try to live righteously, and it is a struggle at times, to be reminded that actually, although it's hard in the moment, we will one day look back on our lives with a confidence and an encouragement that it was clearly in our benefits. It was worth it in the end. There is ultimate justice. The the ever-present in all of our minds for the last few years, Jordan Peterson once commented that in his clinical psychology practice over 40 years or so, he never saw anyone get away with anything, which I actually think is a similar sentiment to what we're seeing in the psalm. People don't get away with stuff. It looks like people get away with things, but somebody who's very evil and amassing great wealth, but is internally extremely unhappy, they're not getting away with anything. They're having a horrible time. Okay, this is the last verse, so feel free to jump in at anybody who's got other comments, but we're finishing on the hour, so I'm glad that the timing kind of worked out here.
Sorry.
Nice.
It's a very straightforward. It's a very straightforward verse, so there's not a huge amount to talk about it, but it is like, I think it's worth looking at like how Jesus does carry our sin to the cross, and that's why he's judged as if he's wicked, although he's not, because we're the ones who get to live. And that dichotomy should get to hit your point. Yeah.
I mean, the psalm is quite repetitious in that it says the same idea lots of times in lots of similar kind of ways. But actually, the ideas in here, I think, are quite complicated to get right. It's easy to be misled, as we saw with the early example, where people take it out of context. I would argue, and say, "Oh, be a good person, and good stuff generally is going to happen to you. You'll be materially wealthy if you deserve it." It's almost like karma, isn't it? That's not what the psalm is saying at all. It's much more nuanced, but it should nonetheless be an encouragement to us to live in a righteous way. I think it's half about our attitude, meaning that when we reflect on our lives, then we will have the desires of our hearts, because our hearts are not greedy and wanting things that we can't have. The other half of it is that living a righteous life, ultimately in the long run, is better. You can make short-term decisions, but you will suffer the consequences of them. So yeah, very, very practical psalm that really, I think, uplifts God and his justice and the righteous. A psalm that takes us both through the present moment and looking forwards to the future. Anybody got any last comments? If not, we will close out with people giving their plugs.
I guess I just sort of want to reiterate that when you're seeking after the Lord, what will give you fulfillment and happiness is a little different than what would before. And of course, it was never true happiness, true joy and contentment that you would have, pursuing your sinful passions, whatever. But like a guy I always look to is my father-in-law. Like, he's a guy at this point in his life who doesn't really have a lot, sort of materially speaking. Like, he's fine, and everything, but you'll be hard pressed to find a guy sort of in his age bracket who's, as happy and sort of purpose driven as he is. And it's all because what he does have is what's really important. He's got family. He's got, all his material needs met. He's got a church he goes to. He's got a community. He's sort of like pillar of the neighborhood, sort of stuff. And I guess that should be all what we're shooting for, ultimately. And all these exterior things are just, they can be nice. The Lord doesn't not want you to have a jet ski, but he also doesn't want you to give up your soul for a jet ski either. So yeah. I guess that's my last point there.
Fantastic. Mr. Patriarch, anything you'd like to remind our viewers of, other than wonderful truths from the Bible?
Sure. So, yes, I've been sort of dragging my feet a little bit with this Machiavelli series, just because each video takes a lot of research time and stuff. But hopefully next week I'll be getting another video out on that. My next sort of easy video, which I'll be releasing by Monday at the latest, is I recently watched Eyes Wide Shut. So I'm going to be doing a movie, kind of a sort of a movie analysis, but mostly sort of tying it in with kind of Moldbug's idea of the cathedral with sort of like elite billionaire, oligarch, pedo sex cults and stuff. And also tomorrow night, Mrs. Patriarch or Mrs. P will be making her YouTube debut. So tomorrow night, tomorrow night, the missus and I are going to be talking about what did I say? Oh yeah, what to look for, good things to look for in spousal material and how to spot it. So we're going to be, so if you guys are singles, if you guys are incels or or whatever, please tune in. And I also have super chats activated. The channel's been monetized. So if you want to leave a question or send me money, that would also be very good. So yeah, that's what I got. So tomorrow night, stream about finding spousal material.
Great. I'll endeavor to tune in for that. That sounds awesome. Settler, what are you up to these days?
First I wanted to say criminalize jet skis. Other than that, That reminds me, Mr. Patriarch. I'm gonna have to have you on my channel for Is Machiavelli based? So I don't know. I'll message you.
Everybody's talking about Machiavelli. Yeah, because Prudentialist is doing wants me to talk about Machiavelli with him next month as well. So I'll be good.
Okay.
I love Machiavelli.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess look forward to that. I should have a live stream planned. I have a different live stream planned for this Monday. So check that out. My Sonic review is coming real soon, guys. I swear it's going to be there. I've been planning the Sonic review for a while. For those of you who are unaware, the Sonic movie is secretly a conservative movie. I mean, not even secretly, it's just blatantly a conservative movie. But I had some Sonic MAGA deniers who denied that it's a conservative movie. So I need to destroy those people with facts and logic. So be prepared for that. Hopefully that'll be this week. I don't know. I've been delaying it for a couple weeks now. But yeah, so there's that. I don't know. There's all sorts of great things. Subscribe to Settlers Lament to save Western civilization. YouTube.com/Settlers Lament and Subscribestar.com/Settlers Lament.
Settlers Lament's channel is the final line on whether anything is or is not based.
It's very true. It's like, the keys to bind and loose were given to St. Peter. The keys to determine what's based and cringe were given to me.
I think you got the raw deal out of that, but it's an important job nonetheless.
Yeah. What else? There's something else I was going to say. I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, you've got the length of Lee Templar's plugs to remember.
I just have I'll type it in the chat, but I wrote a new piece finally after like months of not writing on there's a U.S. general who's basically responsible for why every American house has a television. He's not the inventor of television. He's the founder of NBC, who was friends with one of the inventors of television. So it's a really interesting deep dive. He's basically like this kind of forgotten guy who is like crazy but smart. And it's kind of sad because he viewed TV as a way to defeat the Soviets by like revealing like the wholesomeness of American life against like the censorship of the Soviet Union, and now ironically his technology has been subverted for the opposite. The interesting thing is that he himself was Russian, and so the founder of NBC and one of the main inventors of television were both Russians, and they worked together to basically they were exiles from Russia. They were loyalists to the Tsar, and so America's media empires were essentially a product of czarists who wanted to like subvert America against the communists. It's an interesting story. So I wrote it all together in a little short piece. Hopefully you guys will like it. It's called
That's cool.
David Sarnoff is the guy specifically. I gave a link to the general Substack, but I'll also give a link to straight to the article if you want to post it in the chat somewhere.
All right, I'm ending the broadcast in 20 seconds. So last chance if you've remembered Settler.
Oh no, I don't remember.
Oh well, we've got 20 seconds. We can kick back, relax, have a drink, chill.
Everyone remembers to submit to the Pope.
Oh, perfect time to start a Pope debate. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you very much for everybody joining the stream, and both my illustrious guests, some of them world famous, and my illustrious viewers, who I think almost all of them are world famous. So yeah. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Jane. He's always extremely encouraging. I'll catch you all in a week. Oh, next week might not happen. A week or 2 weeks. Soon enough.
Word.
Good
Thanks,
night.
guys. See ya.